The name of the book is perfectly titled, especially for the incredible life this woman has lived. What Was I Thinking? A memoir. Carol Flemming is the author. She joins us on Author's Corner here in America tonight with me, Kate Delaney. And like I said, oh my gosh, the life she has lived, the people she's met, the people that she broke bread with, the marriages, the kids, just an incredibly interesting life. I mean, of all the people in the thousands of interviews I've done, I would put Carol up there right now as the number one most interesting person with the kind of background she has. So, Carol, thanks for hopping on.
Wow, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this. So in your life, I mean, you met some of the greatest musicians, and we're talking rock, jazz, all kinds of people. You had a company designing hats that sent you all over the place. And some of the people that wore your hats, Elton John, Michael Jackson. I mean, and again, a colorful life is the way I would describe it. And you and I had an off-air conversation about this. So you've been, 52 years in entertainment. First of all, what led you to writing this book? Why'd you write the book?
People were telling me, you should write a book, because I'm a storyteller, and I love to tell stories, and I love to make people laugh. And so I sat down and started typing and reliving it, which was fun. Some of it was hard, some of it was sad, but most of it was exciting and funny.
Yeah, it is exciting and fun. It is a roller coaster ride. So for people listening, I mean, one of the notable people that you were friendly with was Janis Joplin. What was Janis Joplin like? I mean, she's the queen when you think of her voice.
She was just what you saw. She was a little Texas girl, liked to party, liked to drink. We drank Jack together, and the other drank, let's see, what was it? Was sweet, and I can't remember. I'll come back to it. Anyway, we drank a lot together.
Yeah, so she was, when you met her, right? She was, you told me she was just a skinny girl, barefoot, and just a great friend.
Yeah, no, she was, I think, very earthy.
Very earthy, yeah. And then Jim Morrison. So Jim Morrison, you mentioned, you think of the Doors, people, I mean, his music still comes alive today, just like Janis, even for 20-somethings. And Jim Morrison left a legacy behind, but you said that he definitely had some self-esteem issues.
Yeah, he did. In fact, a lot of entertainers and musicians did. But his was very difficult for him. He would pace and pace and pace before he went on stage and check himself in the mirror 2 or 3 times. And he didn't think much of himself. He had very low self-esteem. He said, "I don't sing. I shout." And he thought the rest of the musicians in his group, especially the keyboard, was better than him. But
yeah.
But he had charisma like nobody else. He was very, very sexy.
So was becoming ultimately, because you've had so many, you had restaurants, this design business, you wrote a cookbook, you've been married 8 times, you raised 6 kids, you got these great grandchildren. There's so many things that we can talk about, but did it all start, the road professionally start by being a booking agent of some of these bands?
Yeah, I was dating a musician, and musicians have a hard time booking themselves. And so I would go to clubs and get them an audition. And I was at a club at San Francisco, and I got a call from the musicians union, and they said, "You can't be there." I said, "What do you mean I can't be there?" And they said, "Well, you don't have a license." And I said, "License for what?" Well, they said, "You need to come down here." So I went down and I appeared before a board of 12 men, cigar-smoking old stogies. And they said, "What makes you think that you can be a booking agent?" And I said, "Well, I can represent these musicians when they can't represent themselves, and I can get them jobs and keep them working." So they asked me more questions and had a meeting and sent me a letter. and I became the first, only woman, and youngest at 21 years old booking agent. And I worked for Decca Records for a time. That was when I first met Janice. They sent me out. I was supposed to be a scout and find talent. And when I saw Janice in her cotton dress and barefoot and little straggly hair, listening to her raspy voice, I went back to my mom. I don't think so.
Wow. Yeah, working with the bands and then ultimately designing. I mean, the hat designing, you did a leather outfit for John Prine, which is crazy wild. You also, I want you to tell the listeners about the story where you traveled all over the place, but you made a stop to Thailand, and you said you loved Thailand. And why did you go to Thailand?
I delivered to mascots. It was cheaper for me to fly with them than it was to ship them. And I said, I will bring them to you if you'll put me up. And they put me up in a fabulous hotel. And I loved Thailand. I didn't want to leave. I stayed there for 2 weeks.
No kidding. So,
I made a list on a cocktail napkin that I found interesting. Famous people I've dined with. Dusty Baker. You know who Dusty Baker is?
yes.
Okay. Very, very sweet man. I was alone in a restaurant at a trade show in Texas, and he said, "Little lady, would you like to join us?" And I said, "Yes." And he picked up the tab, and of course they talked baseball the whole time, and I'm not a big baseball fan, but he's just a lovely, lovely man. Alan Watts, Herb Cain, Shel Silverstein. And I met him. He picked me up hitchhiking from San Francisco to Santa Cruz and had the greatest conversation. And he's just as funny and witty as his books. William Saroyan, I had dinner with him. Gavin Arthur. Cheech and Chong, that's a very funny story. Want to hear that one?
Cheech and Chong. Well, you can't tease us like that. Tell us your Cheech and Chong story.
Well, I had a politician friend come to me, and he wanted to know if I could get Cheech and Chong to do a benefit for him. And I said, well, they're kind of raunchy. I don't think they're not real. I don't know if you really want them. He said, oh, no, they're funny. I want them. So I flew down to San Diego where they had an appearance and knocked on the back door. And they said, are you on the guest list? And I said, no, but I ought to be. So they invited me in, and I watched the show. And it was pretty raunchy. And then afterwards, I told them that I had a politician that wanted to know if they would do benefit. And Jimmy, who was very political, Cheech, not so much, but Cheech said, well, he's a beaner, so let's do it for the beaner. Okay, well, but they wanted to meet him. So we flew down to Los Angeles and had dinner with them and their wives, and had a lovely dinner. And they insisted that Camacho, who was the politician, they served the whole fish with the eyes in it, and they said that as you're the guest of honor, you need to eat the eyes. Well, being a politician, he ate the eyes, and then everybody broke out laughing. They just got him to do it. And then when they came up to do the show, I had them to dinner at my house. And I set my best linen, and I had a friend who was a professional cook, and who came in and cooked. And Cheech and Chong, mostly Cheech, Jimmy's pretty much a gentleman, just wiped his face on my big linen tablecloth. He with his mouth open, spit food out, laughed and talked the whole time, and I thought, you gotta spit.
See, you invited that in, so there you go.
But, he wasn't like that at the Chinese restaurant with his wife, so I think it was just part of the act.
Yeah. Who was your favorite person you've ever met? That's a tough question. That was famous.
Probably Shel Silverstein. My children grew up on his books. And he's very funny, very, very, very charming. And I was very lucky And I also, I guess my second favorite person would have been my fencing instructor in college, because he was the only American to ever win the Olympic fencing. And he was an incredible teacher. When you walked in, he would say, "Leave your egos outside the door. You're here to learn." And he was tough. But he was a fabulous person and teacher.
Wow. And then how do you go from all these exciting costume designing experiences and you end up owning restaurants? How'd you end up owning restaurants?
My brother said, "I can't believe the woman that is always sending her food back is opening a restaurant." And I've always been a foodie. And one of my good friends in college was Bruce Adele Sausage. And we used to cook together. And every Sunday it would be his house and my house, his house, my house. And we'd try to outdo each other in cooking. So I've always been a foodie. So when I was 4 and in Santa Cruz, I decided to open a restaurant. I said, that way we'll always have food. So I went out and gathered tables and made tablecloths and put a little tiny sign out and sent my surfer husband down to the beach to tell surfers that there was a restaurant that they could come and eat. And for $5, I gave him a 3-course meal.
I mean, just, again, an amazing read. It's stories about rock and roll and cars and men and family and just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. What Was I Thinking? A memoir. Carol Flemming, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Visit us at www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com or call us at +1 877 556